What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. My name's Thomas,
I'm Julie.
and in this episode in our series called 15 Lessons After 15 Years of Marriage, we're going to be in Lesson 13, which is called Grow Together or Drift Apart. And so we're going to just dive right into this one. And, what that basically means is that if you don't naturally, or if you don't purposefully try to work on your marriage every day and work on bringing your relationship closer together, the world is naturally going to just try to drive space in between your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
And so you have to try and put in the work to pull that relationship closer and closer every single day. Think of it like this analogy. When you put a boat next to a dock, if you tie it up kind of loosely, the boat is naturally going to slowly pull away from the dock, if the rope isn't tied tight. So, you kind of think of that as your relationship with your spouse. If you're not purposefully pulling the rope in closer every day and tightening it up, then it's going to naturally slowly drift away, just put a lot of space between you and your spouse. So, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy. Simply put, if you're either growing closer together or you grow apart. So those are kind of the two options. And so in our 15 years of marriage, we've been there. We've had seasons where we're like more like roommates, than just going through life together, but not growing together. And so we felt that distance. And so that's where we put together just 10 really, really practical ways that we've found that help us continue to grow together. And so we'll just try to tackle them quickly for you to learn and grow in your marriage as well.
Yeah. So, number one is to go to bed together. Have some type of a bedtime routine. We think this is really important because that's a natural time that will give you that physical time with your spouse. If you feel like, there's ever a point in time where you're not having sex a lot, then, or as frequently as you'd like to, this might be a simple area to take a look at first and realize, well, if you're going to bed at hours apart every single night, you're naturally going to miss that.
The other one does not want to be waiting
Exactly.
in bed for you. And if you have kids like we do, there's so many excuses with either young kids or even older kids who might stay up longer than you. It's just put the kids to bed earlier than the time that you go to bed. So you might have to change your routine so you can stay up later to spend time with your spouse. Or it's totally okay if your kids go to their rooms and have their own bedtime routine before they go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
To watch a movie, or if they don't have devices in their room, play Legos or something to still have that. Yeah, exactly. Read a book, like have that bedtime routine for your whole family.
Mm-hmm.
So that then you're going to get time with your spouse, and spend time together to grow together. Even just to talk together, if it's not just physical, just to have that, cultivate that time to go to bed together. Now, if I could speak to like even our marriage, I fall asleep before Thomas does, but we try on most nights to go to our room at the same time. So we have time together, and then, he can watch a show on his phone or something while I fall asleep if you have different, natural tendencies like that. But we're not apart when it comes to the day is closing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, think of that in terms of how we started this episode off. Doing that is gonna reduce that physical distance between the two of you. And if now, don't get me wrong, there are nights where Julie and I do go to bed at different times because she likes to have her bedtime routine, take a bath, relax, and things like that. I like to play video games. And neither of us likes doing the other thing. So we occasionally we will split up and do those things on our own. But we communicate that about that ahead of time. It's okay to have that one-on-one time every so often, but if you're not careful, we have found ourselves with times where we're like, wow, we have not gone to bed at the same time in weeks because we just kind of slipped out of that routine. So you do have to work at that and make sure that you make it a routine and stay in that routine. Otherwise, you can fall out of it really quickly. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it will reduce that physical distance between you. Even if you're just laying next to each other in bed. Like you said, if you fall asleep early and I'm just watching a show,
Yeah,
we're still
someone's
there together.
reading, watching a show. I've heard so many different routines, but just kind of being next to each other.
Hmm.
Actually, it's one of our points too. Is number two is sit next to each other whenever possible. So it may not be in the bed, but if you're watching a show on your couch, you're watching something,
Right.
even if it's sports or whatever. How many times do we just like spread out? Don't touch me, but just kind of sitting next to each other kind of can cultivate that relationship to be able to hold hands or put, a hand on a knee or a leg or something and have that physical touch. Something that we've even started doing that I don't know if this throws off the waiter, but like at restaurants, it's typically they sit you across from each
Hmm.
other. But sometimes we try to sit next to each other even on a date, like eating out
Hmm.
like that. Just we can still talk, but it changes the mood from what you're normally doing in like a business lunch or dinner or something. Or girls' night out or whatever, across from each other to sitting next to your spouse again, just brings that connection in a whole nother level.
Yeah, you have that opportunity to hold hands or, put a hand on a leg or put an arm around someone, something like that, while you're talking. If you're eating, maybe having arms around each other might be a little difficult, but you can pause during that part. But yeah, again, that physical barrier. We're talking about the world putting physical barriers in you, and not trying to put that on the person at the restaurant who's bringing you to your table, but that's just their natural way that they put out the menus, and everyone kind of just falls into that place. Um, but that table is a physical barrier between you and your spouse, and so it makes it harder to hold hands or touch or anything like that. So yeah, that's another one that's simple. Just sit next to each other. And again, there may be times where it's okay to have a little bit of space, but and we would also say we were talking about this offline that when you sit across from each other, the intent is usually to have that conversation, that eye contact, and that conversation. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you do eliminate more of the possibility for the physical touch in that aspect. So just try and change it up once or twice and move next to your spouse.
And speaking of then eating at a restaurant, number three is eat meals together.
Hmm.
So of course you're gonna do that at a restaurant, but what's your home life look like?
Right.
If you're going to work and all that, that's fine. But so many families now in America with devices and distractions and different work schedules and stuff, they kind of come and go, and they're probably eating the 3 meals a day, but are they just kind of eating whenever they want, eating wherever they want, and not sitting down at the same table with your spouse or your family to have a meal together will cause that drift of growing apart.
Right. We were literally just watching a movie about this with our kids tonight, and the dad got home, and dinner was on the table. The mom and the son were eating dinner together, and the dad got home and was like, "Hey, I've got a lot of work to do. I'm gonna go eat in my bedroom." And as soon as he walked away, the kid said, "Can I go eat in my bedroom?" And the mom was like, "No, absolutely not." And so it can create a double standard for your kids if you're not making that time a priority as well. And this number three kind of falls in line, it kind of blurs the line between marriage and family, but it's a good one for either side. So even if you're just a married couple with no kids, try and value that time together as much as you can. We understand there's obviously exceptions to any of these. If you have different work schedules from each other, if you're a nurse or a police officer or a firefighter, those are kind of wonky schedules, and that can cause some issues with routines like this. But make it a priority as often as you can to be able to make this happen, and that will carry through to when you have kids, or if you have kids now and you haven't been making this a priority, just put your foot down and say, no, we're going to do this now, and make it a priority. And later in life, your kids will enjoy it, and your family will be grateful for it, and your spouse will be grateful for it because you'll be spending that time with them just as much as you are with the rest of the family too.
100%. And something fun too, if you can, with your kids, or if you don't have kids, is to then even cook a meal together. So if you have the time, you're gonna have to plan that out. But again, just spending time together to have practical ways to grow together instead of drifting apart.
Yeah, yeah, and moving on to number 4 is texts or send love notes to each other. We text each other all the time in today's day and age, and man, I sound so old saying today's day and age. Um, but
We've been texting for a while, but
yeah, so
and we've moved away from the AOL, Messenger, IM, and
I'm
things
not
like
that old.
that.
I don't know. I'm just kidding.
But it's text like practical, like, can you get milk, or what are you doing, or this and that, like, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
It kind of
touching
becomes
base.
to-do items and information exchange rather than emotion
Mm,
exchange.
that's a
And
good one.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
like
I think that doing that, changing it from just informational to making sure that when that thought comes in your head about your spouse, that you put it to the screen and you send that thought to them so they know the emotion that you're feeling about them even when you're apart. And this is where love notes come into play too. You don't have to have a fancy card or anything. Like, you don't have to go spend $7 stupid on a Hallmark card. You can write something on a post-it note out of your desk on a napkin and put it in their lunch. Write something on the mirror and in your bathroom or something, so that when the steam shows up, it shows them the note. You can get creative with this kind of stuff, and just make sure that emotion that you're feeling about them transfers over to them.
But texts are so fun. Like, just, obviously, I hope you're sending I love you and things like that. But just the even like, I'm thinking of you, or I appreciate that you did this. Thanks for filling up the car with gas, or I'm looking forward to our bedtime routine tonight. Something that just communicates that you're thinking of them when you're apart will just keep you growing together.
Yeah, and we talked about. We've talked about on the podcast the Intimately Us app, which they created an app that helps with your relationship intimacy. They have a sister app called Just Between Us, which is essentially a texting app that just pairs you up directly with your spouse only, which is great because that makes it a little easier to send those love notes and those sexy messages and things like that, because it's really cool because it actually pairs you up with them. They have to sign up, get the code, do the whole thing, and make sure it's only paired up to them. That way, you're not accidentally sending those weird messages to your mom or
Your
something like
boss.
that, and getting yourself into some awkward situations. It's a completely different app, which is really cool. We love that app. So, like I said, it's a sister app of Intimately Us, so you can go check that out. And if you think that's something that could help you because you're just concerned about accidentally sending something to the wrong person, this will eliminate that. So you can keep your informational stuff on your regular text messages and then move over to this app for those emotional and fun text messages.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's another way to lean into your love languages, which is number 5. Learn each other's love language and then take action steps
Mhm.
to love your spouse in that. And so if you don't know what we're talking about, we have the 5 love languages book on our website at marriagepuzzle.com. You can check that out. But we've talked about that in previous episodes. So learn your spouse's love language and then take action steps to that, even if it's through text or when you get home, or whatever, and these other practical ways you can really, really go um really far, and just, simple, easy steps once you know their love language.
Totally. I think that, um, the words of affirmation, what we were just talking about, that falls really easily into the texts and notes that you can do.
Hmm.
And, the other 4, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, and quality time. I got them all right.
Good
I always
job.
forget one.
I was worried
I,
about it.
I got them all. So, find out what your spouse's is, and make sure that you tap into that and try every day. If you need to, set a reminder on your phone to say, you know, love language for Julie, and something
Well,
to
not for
try.
Julie, but
Not for Julie, yeah.
love
That's
language.
that's for me, but yeah, for insert spouse's name here, and and just make that way it reminds you. And we understand you may not be able to hit that every day, and I think your spouse will even understand you may not be able to hit that every day. Nobody's perfect, but they will see that you're working on it and that you're trying to grow and you're trying to show them love that way. And that's going to mean more when you're trying to do that more frequently. So make sure you do that. Next, number 6, have a weekly date night. We've been harping on this a lot through these 15 lessons, and this is huge. A lot of times people get hung up on the fact of date night. Well, now I've got to get a babysitter, and there goes $40 and $50, and then we got to go out to dinner, and there goes another 60, and then if we're going to do something as well, like go to the movies, there's another 60, right? And so it doesn't have to be about that. It doesn't have to be about the money. So don't let that hang you up on not doing this frequently. Get creative. We just said in number 1 to make sure you put the kids to bed a little bit early, before you're ready to go to bed. A couple of hours early. That leaves you plenty of time to watch a movie at home, have a dessert for yourselves. Our kids don't know this, but we have cookies every single night when they're in bed. They don't get the same dessert that we get, and that's a special thing for us.
Yeah.
But we will watch a show together that we like, or watch a movie. You can play a board game or a card game or anything, and just make it a fun time.
Yeah, I think people like overthink date nights,
Mhm.
and that's why we've been harping on it, because us too, going into 2021, I love that it was Thomas's goal. Like, he brought to me that he had on his heart that we were going to go out once a month. And that sounded wonderful at the time. And it was hard to plan, like he's saying, with the sitter and where we're going to go and everything. What that was once a month, and that's only 12 dates a year. And so we changed that to a weekly date night, which adds, obviously, to the math, like 52 dates instead of 12. But it's now, as ironic as it sounds, easier because it's the frequency of it.
Mhm.
And so sometimes we do, go out and have a dinner and get the kids covered, or even an overnight if they do a sleepover somewhere. Uh, but when we're not able to do that, just even the date night at home, just having that weekly rhythm, even if it's a different night of the week, like it can't be Friday night for you every week, plan that out when you're
Mhm.
planning your monthly or your weekly calendar, so it's on the calendar. You guys know it's coming and what to expect and what you want to do. And we're even going to put together a list of like things we want to do at date night, so when that comes up on the calendar, we're not like overthinking of it.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, you could just look at the list and what are we going to do tonight, and have fun and keep growing together.
Yeah, to touch on something you said about my goal for this year, I just want to add one more detail. It was to actually have one kid-free date night every month. Because, when we first had kids, we had twins, and that's difficult when they're babies to try and have a babysitter come over and get two babies fed and at the same time and down and things like that. And so, that was trying to get a kid-free date night in every month. Now, our twins are 7 years old now, but it's still hard to get them down to bed. But, but having a kid-free date night now, there can be, if you have young kids, I think that you can have a little bit of an exception here and say, you know what, we can still have some date nights where we take the kids with us. They're young enough where they won't really interfere too much with that time. When your kids get to be a little older and they start talking more, they're going to interrupt your conversation. When they're babies, you can kind of skirt around that kid-free section for a little while and save a little money on the babysitting, but make sure that you still prioritize it as often as you can. Paying for that babysitter shows your spouse that, look, I want to go spend time with just you. I love our kids, I love our family, but I still want to spend that time with just you as often as we can fit it into the budget. And then when you can't, you still have that fallback to, put the kids to bed early and devote that time together. And we mentioned in a recent episode, you could do something where you order the kids pizza and let them watch a movie in another room, and you have a little candlelit dinner. You can order DoorDash steaks and have your own dinner prepared for you somewhere else, and just sit in a different room and make it fun, as fun as you can. Get creative. That's the most important thing we're trying to drive home on this one.
Yeah, so we're saying have fun with that, have fun with date night. But number 7 is also do the boring stuff together. And so what we mean by that is it's not all glitz and glamour all the time. There's still life, there's still kids, there's still chores and errands that have to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And so stuff that this is one that we've learned through the 15 years of marriage, like it's not as boring if we do them together. And then it's time together. So it may not be a date night, but it's still quality time together. So the chores and
that's one of those love languages.
Quality time.
Yep.
Which even if that's not your number one, like that's not my number one,
right.
But I still love quality time with you because that helps us grow together. So the way we do chores in our home is we kind of have them almost equally split up, if you will. But there's still something about us doing them like at the same time.
Right.
That if I'm like drowning in laundry, but I know Thomas is out mowing the lawn at the same time, like we're in it together. We're tending to our home and our family at the same time. And it's just kind of more motivating if you can do that schedule wise. Or even errands. Like we've kind of called it like Marriage Mondays. We have our work schedule where we can do that on Mondays, and we take the kids to school and we can go get gas and go to, Sam's or Costco and like what the stuff that we have to do. But we're doing it together and we have great talk time. So again, it's not a fancy date, but we're still in the car. We'll go sit in car line together. And I know everyone's schedule is different, but we've kind of devoted that day to that. And it's just fun to look forward to still grow together, even doing the boring stuff.
Yeah. And, something I would add to that is, back to the chore side of things, you're right. We do have things pretty well split up, and recently, Julie said, if I take care of the yard, she'll take care of the laundry, and that's great. But when it rains on the day that I'm supposed to do the yard, that doesn't mean I get a free pass and I don't get to do anything. That's when I need to step up and I need to go help with the laundry so that, she sees, that's one of those acts of service. That's another love language, get in there and help her complete her stuff, her side that she's agreed to do. And half the time so that she doesn't have to spend all that time doing that. And so, and now you're in the same room, you get more of that talk and quality time. So you're hitting 2 love languages at the same time. I think that's a great one. So, moving on to number 8, find a hobby to do with your spouse. When you're looking for a hobby to do, it can be tricky. Like we said earlier, I like to play video games. Julie is not really, she's stuck on Nintendo 64. Like,
I have different hobbies.
And so, you have to find something that you both enjoy. And I honestly don't know if we've fully discovered that yet. It's something we're still working towards.
Yeah. So I think that's why we try different things, like top golf, putt golf, or like, walking around a bookstore and looking at books. Like we're still trying to figure that out, but we know like when we both start talking about something, then we both get excited about it.
Right.
So we're willing to try new things together until we land on that specific hobby. But I know people that play like tennis together, and I don't know what other hobbies. Like we're still discovering that, but
a quick Google search right now, live. I mean, I can just list some off to you. Play cards, go rock climbing, volunteer, play chess, try your hand at tie-dyeing, redecorate your living space. I mean, find a hobby. Yeah.
The point is have fun together, and really even bigger than that is laugh together.
Yeah.
So can you laugh at something or at yourself, or, hopefully not at your spouse, but laugh together.
Yeah.
Helps you grow. Cause I mean, think of this as like, growing up, you can grow in and out of friendships, but, high school, I had the best friendships. We were in the same stage of life. Not as many cares in the world. And then beyond college, it was really, really hard to maintain those friendships. And so I chalk it up to like when we were playing sports together and, studying together. And like I said, we had the same interests and hobbies. We
Mhm.
were great friends. And then beyond college, just different stages of life, you naturally drift apart. So in your marriage, you don't want to be like that.
Mhm.
And so that's why we came up with this of just, we're still trying to discover that. But we know it's important for us to keep growing together, is we need to find something that we can have fun and laugh together
For sure.
doing.
And if nothing else, if it takes you a long time to find a hobby that you enjoy doing together, you're going to be making memories along the way with your spouse of all the things that you were like, man, that was stupid. Why did we try fill in the blank? That
Or
we both hated that.
remember that
Like,
one time that
yeah,
we did this?
yeah,
Like that pulls you back together as you telling stories
yeah,
on each other.
exactly. So yeah, number 9.
Number 9 is never run out of things to talk about. So that's something, again, like when we were talking about texting, you're probably talking and communicate. You think you're communicating, but are you keeping the conversation going?
Right.
Not just the quick K, do this, do that. And so, we firmly believe like we've been there. The minute you stop talking, telling your spouse about even your day, or how work was. Sometimes we're like, oh, they're not going to understand. They don't know who I work with, or they don't understand what I do. The minute you stop talking about your day and your work, your fears or anxiety, or even a little success, you're like, well, I didn't get a bonus or anything. Like, but what was good about your day? Because the minute you stop talking about those things is the moment you start drifting apart.
Right.
And again, we've seen that when we just stopped. It was right when we had the twins, really, is what the point in our marriage that we started kind of drifting apart, just because it got to survival mode instead of the emotions
Mhm.
of how each other were feeling and how we could support each other and how our days were. And so that's why we said never run out of things to talk about. You're going to have to figure out how to cultivate that communication in a deeper level.
Yeah, and something to add on to this one is it's not just about talking, it's about the listening side and
Yeah.
showing interest in what your spouse enjoys. That's going to help keep that conversation going a little bit as well. If you are showing interest, like, for example, I like watching football and it's college football season, college football playoff season. And, you asked me something about it the other day, and I went on this tangent and told you all about it. And the conversation ended with you being like, I'm a little confused, but
I
that was
was
okay. You fully tuned in and
I was
engaged,
trying so hard, but I did not understand.
but you engaged in something and let me just spout off about something that I enjoyed. And
Mhm.
so, you know, showing your spouse the interest, in showing interest in something your spouse enjoys and giving them your full attention when they're telling you about it, just to see them kind of overflow with the joy of telling you about it. Even if you have no idea what they're talking about, or something like that, that still is going to bring you closer together because they know you care.
Yeah, I mean, something that was the wake up call and for us in this is, like I said, we started drifting apart when we had kids, and even though our kids are still young, we did have just like this aha moment of like, do you want to look at each other when your kids are out of the house and say, who are you? Like,
Right.
I don't want to, have all this. We had 7 years of marriage without kids, and it was great. And then I don't want just the rest of it just to be roommates.
Yeah.
And so we're still cultivating our relationship and our friendship. And so that's why we never want to run out of things to talk about, so we
Yeah.
can know each other deeper.
Totally. And number 10, last but not least, listen to podcasts like this awesome podcast you're listening to right now,
Good job.
or read a book together. Find something to do, and
To
keep
grow together.
and keep learning about something new. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to always be about marriage. It can be about some non-marriage related stuff. You could talk about politics or science or work or whatever.
A leadership book or a parenting book, if you're in that, just something together.
Yeah.
That was something that we always tell people to listen to this podcast together, at least if you're doing it separate, to digest the information and definitely talk about it together. But you both have to participate in that. And then if it's a book, we didn't do that for a long time in our marriage because we just have different
reading styles.
Yeah, both of us don't even really love to read, and then we have different reading styles. Like I like the paper book to see how far I have left and how far I've come, and you like audiobooks. So we do it together. We'll, either read to each other from the paperback or listen to audio. We just kind of had to like do it at the same time to get through it and discuss it, and that has helped us grow together immensely.
And it may be a topic that neither of you know anything about, but kind of going and doing your own research and coming together, that might be a fun hobby to kind of circle it back.
I was gonna say, you and I probably need to find a book about a hobby, and then that's what we need to do. We'll learn from our own podcast. But our point is relationships last not because they were destined to last. Relationships last because two people made a choice to keep it, and they fought for it, and they worked on it. And so, like I said, we've had to learn that, and we want to continue to learn that. And we want that for you too, so you can grow together instead of growing apart.
Drifting apart.
Yeah. Grow together so you don't drift apart.
There you go. Thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Marriage Puzzle Podcast. Just a reminder that new episodes release every week on Mondays. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Marriage Puzzle. And go check out our website, marriagepuzzle.com, to see news and to sign up for our email newsletter. And if this is your first time listening to us, thanks so much for checking us out. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating. We hope you enjoyed this one, and as always, we'll look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Bye.